Good morning, everyone. I'm going to have to talk a little loud today. The microphone's not working, so hopefully everybody can hear me on this blustery, wintry day. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate that. Very excited to introduce our speaker today, but before we do that, I'd like to acknowledge Deputy Chief Minardi, who's here today. Deputy Chief Minardi really is responsible for bringing the jail diversion program to Westboro, Southboro, Northboro. He did a lot of the initial research and wrote the first grant to the Department of Mental Health. I shared with you it's approaching close to $100,000 now. So that's $100,000 we're able to bring in to the borough program. It's the first of its kind in Worcester County. We're really, really proud of that. Updates from the police department, just a couple brief. I don't know if you saw social media, there was this threat of schools. It was a national threat that started on a social media site. We had both shifts at the schools today. We didn't feel it was credible at all, but just to show that, hey, we are community caretakers and we're going to make sure people feel safe. So we just kind of just a soft approach, just to be seen, just to make sure the kids felt safe today, and the staff felt safe today at the school. It's too bad we live in this society now where social media can do such positive things, but it also can create hysteria and do terrible things. Thank you so much. So the other update I'll give you is next month I'll be introducing our newest hire. We have an officer that's going to be starting on December 20th from the town of Southboro. He's a lateral transfer, great addition to our department. Sadly, Lieutenant McLeod's retirement looks like it will go into effect next month. There's one more step to be involved in that, and then we will replace Lieutenant McLeod with Sergeant Daniels, who is also with us here today. So hopefully next month I'll be introducing him officially as a lieutenant. And with that being said, I'd like him to give a brief update, and then he'll turn the mic over to our illustrious guest speaker, our clinician, JDB clinician.
Thank you, Chief. Mike Daniels. I was here last month. We were here with Alicia O'Brien. We talked about the CIT training, the crisis intervention training that a lot of the officers, that we're trying to get some of our officers to do. So far, I think we have 3 officers trained. We're looking to train about 20% of the police department. That is the number that Officer O'Brien really talked about last time she was here. And really, the difference between the CIT training and the CIT officer and our clinician is, far and wide. What the CIT program does really for us is it allows police officers to really look at things from a different perspective. So when someone's in a mental health crisis, you heard Officer O'Brien really kind of touching upon some of the things that she may look for, and it gives some of the officers more insight. So when they, show up to a call where someone's going through some sort of crisis, whether they have some mental health challenges or whatever it is, they can really evaluate it and find out what resources will be required. The way that program really bridges into our clinician program is that a lot of times right now when we respond to calls and we have a situation that might require a clinician, we usually flag them when we do an incident report. So when Karly comes in, who will introduce just very shortly, she comes in, she reviews it, and then she may do some follow-up. If we're lucky enough to have her, because we share her with some of the other local agencies, if we're lucky to have her, she usually comes on a call with us in a co-response, which she'll talk about later. Outside of that, really, the community engagement team, we've been pretty busy throughout the holiday season, which is typically what happens. Another good thing about having our clinician with us is that Karly was able to attend a Shop with a Cop event that we had in Framingham, where we sent Officer Sabati, which everyone here knows, along with Officer Hale, and she also attended. So she is really melded in with the communities, melded in with our police department, and she's a huge, valuable resource to us, and we're very lucky to have her. So with that being said, I introduce Karly McKenna, our JDP.
Thank you. Hi guys, thanks for having me. Thanks Chief for inviting me. So I'll just introduce myself real quick before I kind of talk about the program a little bit more. So I grew up in Maine. I went to school in Massachusetts at Merrimack, and then I went back to Maine to be with my family for a little bit and get my master's there in social work. So I got my master's in social work, and I'm pursuing my independent license currently. But while doing that, I'm doing some jail diversion stuff with them, which I really like. And I actually started a correspondence program in Maine with a police department there. So that's kind of where I found the passion for it. And Massachusetts is a lot further along in this kind of stuff than Maine. Maine has no programs like this. So really thankful for all of the data that Mass has collected and for the departments for getting on board with this. So as a co-responder, I'm responding with the officers. We have a lot of other towns who do this as well. It actually started in Framingham in 2003. So it's been around for a while, and they've been doing this for a long time. And this program is the first co-response in Massachusetts. So we're very lucky to be a part of it. So we have a program in Marlborough that started in 2008, in Watertown that started in 2011. And then our first regional model was actually Ashland, Sherborne, Holliston, and Hopkinton in 2015. And that JDP is currently just in Sherborne, Holliston, and Hopkinton as of about 6 months ago, I think. And then we have Hudson and Sudbury that started in 2018, Franklin and Medway, Natick in 2019, and then the boroughs, which was 2019 as well. So I'm shared with Northborough and Southborough and Westborough. And how that looks is I'll just do like Westborough on Monday, Southborough on Tuesday, and then Northborough on Wednesday. So I just kind of rotate, and if they need me in a different town, we'll talk about it and we'll switch, or they'll just drive me to the call. So they're really great. They're like my little Uber sometimes. We joke about it. So very exciting that we have so many programs. We also have a big laundry list of programs that want to get a JDP. We have a ton of surrounding towns that are currently interviewing clinicians right now. So we're growing very, very rapidly. It's very exciting. So the pre-arrest co-respondent model, there's 3 components to that. So we have the ride-along, where it's a master's level clinician in every department. That's what we require, masters in either social work or mental health related field. So we have that clinician riding along with the officers, going to any calls that they get sent to. It doesn't necessarily have to be a mental health call. We go along to the calls that they're dispatched to. So we're in the cruisers. And then sometimes we're seeing people with mental health stuff, and it doesn't come in as a mental health call. You never know. So sometimes we can be useful in other ways as well. And then it's at the discretion of the officer. Sometimes the officers don't want us to come on scene with them. Sometimes they do. It really depends. They know the communities pretty well, so they're really great with that discretion. And then we're also embedded within the police department, so like they said, we'll do follow-ups. I'll pull up some of the dispatch calls, and I'll do follow-ups for calls that I just wasn't here for. That can just be like a referral. And I'm doing a full assessment every time I meet with someone. So they're getting to chat with me for a little bit about things they probably didn't anticipate talking about. But I love getting to know people, so it typically goes pretty well. And then so we also do some training. So all of our clinicians are doing in-service training right now. I was in Lowell about 3 weeks ago teaching officers about mental health. So we'll teach classes of officers that have graduated the academy and are working full-time. So we'll meet with them, and I do that with another officer. We teach the class together, which is really great, because they don't just have to listen to me. They have one of their officers up there chatting with them, and we had pretty good feedback about that. So as a co-responder clinician, the training that we do can also be informal. I'm chatting a lot with officers on the road, on the go, about calls that we go to. I learn a lot from them, and I hope they learn a lot from me too, but we discuss, how the call went, what we think about it, how it could go differently next time, and just by them being there during my assessments, they learn some questions that they could ask people in the future too, which is really helpful, and we talk about why I ask certain things that I do. So it's kind of a little bit of education on the go, if you will, although I don't always tell them that. So there's also, we also do some like substance use referrals. There's a lot of times there's mental health related to substance use, so when we see someone using substances, I can't always evaluate them if they're on substances, but we can make those referrals to help those individuals. You never know what else is going on, so we do see a lot of that. And then we have regular meetings with all of my departments. We just had one last week, so I have a liaison in every department. So Sergeant Daniels was at the meeting last week, along with the other 2 lieutenants from the other towns, and we just meet and we chat about things that are going on in their communities as well as ours, because sometimes we see the same people, and it's really helpful to talk about that. And they always share, cop stuff too at those meetings. It's an opportunity to get together with the other towns and collaborate, and then just chat about how I'm doing. So a lot of what I do on scene can be just basic de-escalation. By me showing up and not being in a uniform, sometimes that goes a long way. Or just chatting with families that are in a crisis, even though I may not be talking to the actual person in crisis. Sometimes I can help the families in a time of distress, seeing their loved one go through something pretty difficult. So I can play a lot of different roles depending on the call. Just being there for support. Sometimes people don't want to talk, they just want to sit, and then they can call me another time if now it doesn't work or when I meet them. So I'll be determining like the levels of care as well. So sometimes we see people who are at such risk and having such a hard time that we can't really de-escalate on scene. So I can determine what level of care they meet and where we can send them to get that care in the moment. So I'm doing a lot of consulting with doctors. I'll call our doctors on call, which is really, really great. They're awesome. They always pick up the phone, and we have a rotation 24/7. So I always have a psychiatrist or a doctor willing to chat with me about what's going on, and they can look more into like the medical side when I refer them. So that's really helpful, especially when we're on the side of the road, and sometimes I don't have the answers. So that's super helpful. We do a lot of community treatment referrals, which we collect all that data from the people that we keep in the community rather than bringing them to jail or the ER. And that data just kind of talks about how much money we're saving when we divert. Everyone likes to see that. And I like to see people stay in the community, with their family, loved ones, friends. A lot of the time that can be more beneficial for someone if we can set them up with more support in their home. We like to see them, especially around the holidays. And then the dual diversion is kind of what I mentioned with diverting from jail and the ER. Just criminal justice system. Sometimes people get wrapped up in that for mental health reasons, and I know we don't like to see that. And it's just, I'm another resource for these officers to kind of divert to and help take a little liability away from them as well. So some ways that we can help assist them. So I can consult for a Section 12. A Section 12 is something that takes away people's rights in terms of going to the hospital involuntarily. So an example of that is someone who is having like a psychotic episode, hearing voices, seeing things. It can be very, very scary, and they can present very, violent at times because they're seeing things that we aren't seeing, and it's not, they don't mean to hurt anyone. So sometimes we can write a Section 12, I'll consult with the doctor, and we'll get them to the hospital and stabilize them. It's a safe place for them to be. We have medical professionals who can help them. We can, prescribe when they're in the hospital, which is something I can't do on the side of the road. So that is the Section 12 that I can help. The Section 18A is when someone is in custody and we can't keep them safe in custody. So we'll consult with a forensic state psychologist, which will help with the 18A, getting someone to a hospital, medical attention, mental health attention, something we can't do in cell necessarily. And then a Section 35 is for substance use. Loved ones, family, friends can go to court and help get resources for someone struggling with substance use. It essentially is a court-mandated referral for substance use. It's something that the court will determine, like, yes, this person should seek some help for their substance use, even though they might not want to in the moment. So the Section 35 is through the court, and we can help guide people on how to get that and just give more information. I can sit down with family and chat with them about what a Section 35 entails, because sometimes they don't know how to go about getting that. They haven't done it before. And then death notifications, that is not something that happens often, but I can go with an officer to someone, a loved one, and help, deliver that death notification, and just be there for support, someone not in a uniform. I can also make referrals to grief counselors, any therapists, any other follow-up they might want following this event in their life. So those are ways that I can help, assist officers that don't always, entail a co-response or riding around the cruiser. So that's kind of, what I do day to day. But like Sergeant was saying, I went to the event last night for the Shop with a Cop, and it was really great. We got to get paired up with kiddos and shop around Walmart, and they could get whatever they wanted with a certain limit of money, but a lot of kids came out, they wanted more items rather than one big item, and it was really cute. They would get to the front, and then they'd see, they'd put the big ticket items in the front, like the $300 car. And one kid was like, "Can I give up all of my items for this one car?" And we were like, "No, buddy, I don't even think we can afford that." But it was really, really sweet to see all the officers get paired up with a kid and go shopping with them and just talk with them. It was really, really nice. We had about 400 kids there from all the surrounding towns, not just Westboro and Southboro and Northboro, but there were about 400 kids and like a handful of departments that sent people. And the kids got to see them arrest the Grinch. We put them in the back of the cruiser, we put the lights on, and they arrested the Grinch and took pictures, and they got Chick-fil-A after, when they left Walmart. They all got goodie bags, and all the officers, of course, got goodie bags of Chick-fil-A too. So that was really, really nice, especially around the holidays, to see that happening. But I guess I also will mention, so part of what I do is I work for Advocates, which is a nonprofit agency out of Framingham. So I have a lot of other resources. We work with the deaf community, people with disabilities. So we have a lot of different resources within my own agency that I don't always see when corresponding with the officers. But I was just thinking the other day, I responded to an urgent care call with a woman who was nonverbal and deaf. So I actually was FaceTiming with the director of our agency to try to get someone on FaceTime last minute. So just the perk of being a part of an agency is having all these connections that I wouldn't necessarily have, you know, just working with the PD, because sometimes we got to reach out for help we didn't anticipate. And she was like, "Do I even know you?" I'm like, "No, we don't know each other, but we do work for the same agency." So yeah, it's kind of a small world in that way. Just really nice to have other people with other specialties in my agency, so we can not spread ourselves too thin. But I will hand it over for questions or just conversation. I can talk about a little bit more. Yes.
Do you work with post-traumatic stress syndrome veterans?
So we actually just got connected with an agency that we can do referrals for veterans. We see a lot of post-traumatic stress, not only from veterans, but from a lot of different things. So we actually just recently got connected with one of our new clinicians who's in Lowell, was working with veterans prior to this. So she, you know, has passion for that and has been a great resource. So.
Do you have funding for that, or do the police have to use their own funds?
So Framingham provided the funds. I don't know how that happened. I don't know where it came from, but they had a budget set up, and with the amount of kids that they had signed up, they, you know, had determined how much each kid could spend. So they did a great job with it. That's for sure.
Real quick, so for Westboro, for our kids, our Patrol Officers Association contributed the money so that our kids could go and the money would be spent on the Westboro kids. But our officers helped all the kids that attended the event. So that's really where the money, you know, usually comes from, whether it be Framingham or Westboro. But our unions and our associations help contribute to make sure that these kids are getting gifts, right? So.
And that's wonderful.
Thank you.
That's a beautiful thing.
It is. It's good. It's good. We're trying to help everybody and support people, and that's one of the ways that we do it. So.
Thanks, Sarge.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
So I'll close with this.
And the deputy chief can attest to this. So usually when my phone rings in the early morning hours, it's usually not good. And this morning, the deputy chief's and my phone rang at 1:38 a.m. And it was a 40-year-old male who had overdosed and died, we believe, through evidence at the scene. Obviously, our detectives respond, state police detectives respond, the medical examiner's office gets involved, and then they'll tell us after they do toxicology. But the information and evidence at the scene dictates that that's most likely what it was. So this is where this program really comes into place, where we try to get to these people, what Karly was talking about, so we can avoid a tragedy like this. And it's all too often that we're seeing these types of calls for service. And it's important to know, when Deputy Chief Bernardi researched this program, applied for the grant, you know, we knew that we were hiring, basically through a grant, advocates, a clinician through their agency. But it's important for Karly to know, and for you to know, she's very much a part of the Westboro Police Department, the fabric of our department. She has a locker. She works out in our gym. She is a huge asset to this department, because the goal, as Sergeant Daniels and Officer O'Brien were talking about, is that critical incident training that we want 20% of our department to partake in, is to have more tools for our toolbox so we can offer a higher level of service to you folks. And that's working with our veterans, it's working with our kids, it's working with youth and family services in town, our school department, our fire department. We're all on the same page when it comes to this. For instance, when Karly talks about a Section 12, right, an involuntary committal to a hospital, we work very well, advocates, with Marlborough Hospital. So before, a lot of the times we go to UMass, well, UMass, then there'd be a disconnect, we're with Marlboro Hospital because Advocates has a relationship, then we're able to do follow-up. So we're trying to really prevent what happened at 1:38 this morning. That response, where we have to go with that 40-year-old person who's no longer with us because of mental health issues and dependency on drugs. So that's kind of what we're all about here in Westboro, and it really is a team effort. The Tires That Meet the Road, our patrol officers that are out there every day working with Karly, like she's saying, doing follow-ups, to even just the simple of things is really just de-escalating and finding a way, as Officer O'Brien was saying, to make people feel safe and get them the help they need. So I really do appreciate you allowing your police department to come in the third Friday of every month to kind of give you a brief update and show you, what we're trying to accomplish here as your department. We take the role of caretaker very seriously. I hope you can join us next month in January. I don't know if you're aware, but Senator Eldridge is no longer going to be our senator. It's going to be Senator Mike Moore. I'm very familiar with Senator Moore. He's from Millbury. He's a great guy, but I've invited him to come in so he can introduce himself to you and really show you how hard he's going to be working for Westboro in the communities that he represents. So again, have a great Christmas, a phenomenal New Year. Be safe with your family. I know we're back to mass again. Hopefully, we'll come out of this soon. But on behalf of the police department, I say have a great holiday season, and I look forward to seeing you in January. Thank you.